Welcome back to another episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. You can get all of your Pack-A-Day updates by following us on Twitter at Pack-A-Day Podcast. And remember to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, or Spotify. And of course, you can find us on cheeseheadtv.com. I'm Maggie Loney, and I'm joined by Andrew Mertig. And it is a Victory Monday show, the first podcast of 2024. What a great way to kick off the new year. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy New Year to everybody who is watching or listening. We get the YouTube assignment, I assume, because Andy didn't want to stay up, or he was doing something else for New Year's. I'm not sure, but like, what a game! You and I kind of jokingly had the conversation before the game started of like, how are we going to handle this if the Packers lose? Like, that was a very realistic possibility coming in, and for them to just hammer the Vikings, kind of overcome some adversity during the game that they haven't been able to do, especially lately. That's really exciting. So it's just super awesome to be here.
Yeah, really, really fun way to kick off the new year, considering how the last couple weeks had went. Big question mark. Hate those division games. Everybody's wanting to play spoiler at this point in the season. So obviously, the Packers struggled against the Panthers. Still ended up winning, but
Vikings. That's
no,
my
I was
mistake.
no, I was talking about last week. They had struggled. So going into this week, we weren't entirely sure what the game was going to look like. Packers traveling to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings. Playoff on the line for both teams, obviously sitting at 7-8. It was kind of a win and keep your season alive. Vikings, of course, with a loss can still squeak in to the playoffs with they need a number of things to happen, but the Packers absolutely had to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. So they go to Minneapolis and they beat the Vikings 33-10 to the point where we'll get to it. Sean Clifford gets to come in spot duty for Jordan Love. So just couldn't have asked for a better way to wrap up the 2023 year. So, Andrew, why don't you kick us off here with that first half recap?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my mistake. I accidentally left the Panthers in the script. So that's why the false correction there happened. But yeah, the Packers end up winning the coin toss. They decide to start with the ball, really aggressive. A deep shot on the very first play from scrimmage to Jaden Reed is a little offline. A run to Aaron Jones goes nowhere, and Romeo Doubs can't come up with what would have been a really, really acrobatic catch. 3 and out for the Packers. That is not a good signal when you choose to start out with the ball. But the Vikings respond. A nice Jaren Hall scramble, but then a run that goes nowhere and an incomplete pass. The Vikings also go 3 and out. And so the Packers do get it back. Their second drive, Tucker Kraft for 5, followed by a short gain to Aaron Jones. Doubs converts the third down with a great second effort. Kraft with a nice gain of 12, 3rd and 4. They get a big conversion to Bo Melton for 13. Aaron Jones, a huge gain on a toss play, Dillon run, and then a batted pass lead to 3rd and 8. Love rolling to the left with pressure. Just overthrows Malik Heath for a would-be touchdown. Kind of felt like, okay, that's going to be a big missed opportunity in this game. Anders Carlson comes on, hits from 34, 3-0. Good guys.
Yeah, it wasn't 6, obviously, but it was nice to see the Packers put some points on the board first. I liked the play calling on that drive, and it was nice to see that offense kind of get comfortable early. Obviously, you wish that it would have been a touchdown. They were just a smidge away on that one, but yeah, good to see the Packers actually take the points instead of settling and maybe going for it and then not getting anything for that nice drive.
Yeah, really easy for like a young quarterback in his first start in this chaotic environment to kind of let that mess with his head, but certainly Love was able to bounce back and prevent that from being the case. The second play of the second drive for the Vikings, Jaren Hall is a little off on the throw to Johnny Munt. It gets tipped up, and Corey Ballantyne, Johnny on the spot with the interception. The second play of the Packers' third drive, Love throws a 33-yard absolute laser to Jaden Reed for a touchdown, perfectly in stride, 10-0 Green Bay. And the Vikings get it back. 2 big runs by Ty Chandler. That sets up the third Vikings drive. Encroachment on Kenny Clark. And then the ever difficult 1st and 5 for some reason. Nothing for Chandler. A deep shot to Jefferson that was played really well by Ballantyne, although the throw was really off. Leads to a 3rd and 4. third and 4, and that leads to a throwaway, a punt back to the Packers, and then they get a big A.J. Dillon run for the first to start that drive. A huge gain to Bo Melton on a great blitz pickup by Dillon. I can't say that enough. A.J. Dillon really stepped in, stoned the rusher, gave Love the time he needed. Love drifts back, throws it up off his back foot, wide open Bo Melton, which was the case most of the evening. An offside on the Vikings gives the Packers 1st and 5. 2 Jones runs and a Love shove leads to 4th and 1. Love lost one to a wide open Bo Melton. He can't quite reel it in. Not an ideal throw. Tough catch, but one you would hope would be made. That is a turnover on downs.
Yeah, that one in the moment just felt like one that you're hoping doesn't come back to bite you at that point. I wanted them to kick at that point, but I also really liked the play call that Matt drew up there. And it's just a missed opportunity. Should have been an early dagger with a very catchable ball. I shouldn't say a catchable ball. Jordan could have put the ball in a better spot as well, but just a missed opportunity there that thankfully, now that we know, it didn't come back to bite them.
Yeah, and that's a moment. Packers should be up 17-0. Vikings get the ball back. Easy to see a momentum swing there. Hall hits Justin Jefferson on an out route. They followed up with a big gain to Jordan Addison, but then a combined sack by Van Ness and Colby Wooden. 3rd and 16 is a check down to Johnny Munt to get into field goal range. Greg Joseph nails a 54-yard attempt, and it is now 10-3 Green Bay. Packers get the ball back, and Jaden Reed goes for 15, Tucker Kraft for 13, and then 4. A couple of Aaron Jones runs for a first down, another first down run for Jones, plus they get illegal hands to the face on Minnesota. 1st and goal from the 3. Love on a keeper extends the ball across the goal line, 17-3 Green Bay.
Yeah, it was too early at that point in the game to call that thing a dagger, but because we've seen this defense play enough this season. But yeah, we always say the Packers play differently with a lead. And I think one of the best forms of defense for Green Bay has been time of possession. So far, the Packers were winning the turnover battle there. They had the interception early from Valentine, and then the time of possession battle as well. So it felt like a statement from Love to punt that thing in for 6. And, not that 14-point lead was insurmountable, but they were really starting to stack momentum at that point in the game.
Absolutely. And Love, who's always so calm and collected, never too high, never too low, which I love about him, went to the sideline after that got reversed to a touchdown and sort of flexed a little bit to his teammates. I love that. I love seeing the energy from Love, and the confidence he's playing with right now has to be a little scary for some opposing teams. But the Vikings, with 4 minutes left in the second, get a nice run after the catch by Josh Oliver for a gain of 12. A huge sack by Quay Walker, who almost hit Hall before he hit the 5th step on his 5-step drop. With an absolute fantastic play. 3rd and 16 after the 2-minute warning. Hall airmails the throw. Jaden Reed throws up a late fair catch signal, gets hit hard, but the officials pick up the penalty. That definitely is a penalty by the law of the rule. I also don't love Jaden making the decision to throw up a very, very late fair catch signal. That's dangerous. But anyways, they don't call it. So Aaron Jones with a nice run, but Holding brings it back. A couple of nice plays get to 3rd and 1, but the deep shot is overthrown to Jaden Reed. So the Vikings get the ball back and a chance to really make this a much closer game at halftime. Preston Smith bends the edge on Christian Darrisaw on 2nd down, gets the strip sack. That is recovered by Carl Brooks. 26 seconds left. The Packers get the ball back at the 37. What a gift. An out route to Dobbs for 12, and then a little crosser to Jaden Reed. And he turns on the jets, turns on the power, takes it to the house. Carlson does end up missing an extra point, but it is 23-3 at halftime.
Yeah, I joked about this with Perry on Packs What She Said, but in 2021 and 2022, the Packers lost the first game in this series against Minnesota and then responded with a blowout in their second meeting. So a lot of ball game left, obviously, at this point, but to go 23-3 at the half, you couldn't have asked for much more from this Packers team in all 3 phases, truly. I mean, you're talking about missed extra points, and we'll talk about some special teams blunders here a little bit later, but with a playoff spot on the line against a division opponent in an away game, just really solid performance in the first half for this Packers team that was missing some significant starters.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you go into halftime, you're feeling really great as a Packers fan. The Vikings, of course, make the quarterback change to Nick Mullins to start the second half. And you're like, Nick Mullins hasn't played that well. But then he starts to matriculate the ball down the field. A big gain to Justin Jefferson, another on a screen to Chandler. But a false start and an ineligible man downfield set Minnesota back. This is Packers territory, right? Keyshawn Nixon comes screaming in with the sack. It's 2nd and 28. What could possibly go wrong here? A check down gets them into a 3rd and a little bit more manageable, but then Justin Jefferson gets loose in the secondary to pick up the first down.
Yeah, I think it came on the screen. It was like 3rd and 14. All right, drink. Vikings picked it up. Like let's keep it rolling. We knew exactly what was going to happen at that point.
Yeah, and so then a 3rd and 3 check down to Chandler, a missed tackle, but Keyshawn Nixon comes in and hangs on for the stop. That is quietly a very key moment in the
Mhm.
game because I didn't see which corner missed that tackle, but if Chandler gets past Nixon, even if he doesn't score a touchdown, it's easy first, and that's a lot of momentum for the Vikings. But then it is 4th and 4 because of that stop. They have to go for it. It ends up being an incomplete pass, turnover on downs, and a big sigh of relief.
Yeah, the Vikings had to go for it at that point out of necessity, down 3 scores in the third. But, they picked up the initial 3rd and long to keep everything alive. And then the Packers are able to clamp down in the red zone and get the ball back. So still maintaining that 3-score lead at this point. And fingers crossed that Preston Smith is okay. He did come back into the game shortly after with his ankle taped up, but never great when you see one of your vets, especially at a position, where there's some need right now, down like that on the field. So seems like there's good news, but waiting, of course. We're recording this right after the game, so we'll see what the injury news is a little bit
For
later.
For sure. A few of those that we'll talk about at the end of this show. But Aaron Jones starts the Packers' first drive of the second half with a 26-yard run. Packers miss on a deep shot to Dobbs, but come back on 3rd down. They get 14 to Malik Heath for the conversion. A check down to Jones. He takes for 10. Run after run after run. Then Love finds Bo Melton wide open in the back corner of the end zone. 30-3 Packers. That was a 13-play, 91-yard drive, taking 8 minutes off the clock.
Yeah, and I think 4 touchdowns total was the most in Love's career at this point, right? I mean, he's up to 30 passing touchdowns on the season. Just really impressive stuff from the first 2 starters, especially without some of the players that, we thought he'd have in the lineup. No Watson this week, no Wicks. Luke Musgrave obviously still on IR, although he is designated to return. So just a really, really impressive performance from QB1.
Yeah, and a friend of mine, shout out Jared, pointed out that Jordan Love is now 9th all time in Packers touchdown passes. So moving up the charts, just a few more to go to catch up to the top 3 there. But this leads us into the 4th quarter with a 27-point lead. The Vikings are punting. The game's over, except they decide to put Samori Toure back there to field the punt. He gets hit, fumbles, and the Vikings recover at the 8th. A play-action touchdown to Johnny Munt makes the game 30-10. The Packers then respond. Again, adversity in this game. They respond. They go 57 yards on 13 plays. They take another 7:55 off the clock. I haven't seen the time of possession in this game, but I bet it's outrageous. They get the field goal, but the time off the clock essentially ends any slim chance Minnesota had. The Vikings drive down the field, and they fail on 4th and goal. And then from there, it's just the Packers running out the clock and, of course, upsetting Andrew Booth significantly.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it at the top of the show, right? But how wild was it that we're talking about, keep going back to it, playoffs on the line here. Packers have to win to stay in contention. And we have Sean Clifford sighting. And it's not because Jordan Love got benched, right? It's because Jordan Love played so well that they had to trot out Sean Clifford because the game was all but wrapped at that point. So really fun to see, him get a shot with a really nice completion to Bo Melton, who was wide open on a busted coverage. So just an all-around really nice performance from this Packers team. And not to derail the show by any means, but I did think it was really funny to hear Chris Collinsworth in the booth kind of tiptoeing around the Joe Barry thing when he was like, "Hey, there's Joe Barry." And I know we think there'll probably still be a coordinator change. I'm not naive. I don't have my head in the sand here, but I do like Joe Barry. So that was that was pretty funny to hear, like, as a nationally broadcasted game from Collinsworth.
Yeah, that was a little over the top honesty that you don't necessarily expect from the booth coverage there. So that's what happened in this game. The ending was a lot less stress free than the games that we have been covering over the last probably 8 weeks. But we do want to talk a little bit about your key players of the game. So Maggie, who did you go with?
See, and this is hard because I feel like so many guys would get a game ball if we were giving out game balls. Like, it's
Mm.
tempting, obviously, to say Bo Melton stepped in big moments, got his first career touchdown, and I think he also was Green Bay's first 100-yard receiver of the season, which is just baffling to think about here in Week 17. Jaden Reed also, obviously deserves the nod. Had 2 touchdowns, broke Sterling Sharp's receptions record as a rookie, so he's also deserving of a ball. But I feel like it kind of has to be Jordan Love, and you could argue it for a number of players on offense, but just an exceptional night from Jordan Love against a good Brian Flores led defense. 24 of 33, 256 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 125.3 rating, which I think is his second best of the season behind, I think, only the Lions game on Thanksgiving. So, division opponent on the road, playoff spot on the line. We've said it right already. The moment just didn't seem too big for him. And talking about the playoffs, talking about an evaluative year, like whatever we're doing with the Packers, whether or not they make the playoffs, they found their quarterback. And you see him show up time and time again in big moments. And that was just what he did tonight as well.
Yeah, I was with you. There were just so many players that went through my head. Bo Melton, Jaden Reed, of course, Love, I think was phenomenal in this game. Aaron Jones had a really, really fantastic game as well. You could even go with a guy like Preston Smith, Keyshawn Nixon. I think, the corners played really well. You didn't even hear Carrington Valentine's name at all tonight. Valentine, of course, made some plays. But I'm going to go with the whole offensive line. There are a lot of other players that deserve credit, but the way I think about this, there's a highly disruptive defense. We know what Brian Flores can do, especially to young quarterbacks. The Packers did whatever they wanted to do on both the ground and through the air, and that was because the offensive line really controlled the game. The Packers won in the trenches on both sides of the ball, something we can't always say, but especially on offense, they really, really controlled the game. I love the way that this unit is gelling. I think that Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom are both playing at an elite level. That doesn't mean that they're going to be elite tackles. I mean, I think Tom is trending that way, but right now they are playing phenomenally. And I know we get so lazy as people that are fans and talk about the team a lot, but to me, the way this team is heating up and playing, it does remind me a little bit of that 2010 stretch where Aaron Rodgers could not make a mistake. His stats didn't always look great. Sometimes, it was let's ride James Starks. Sometimes the defense was carrying the team, but it was everything was clicking. And that's the way they look tonight. Now, super young team. That could change next week. They could come out and lay an egg. But, you love to see the momentum that they're building right now.
Yeah, so talking about the momentum and just, this being one of the more complete games from this Packers team this entire season and coming at a good time, obviously, with that playoff spot on the line. Now that they know the scenario is winning in at home next week, hosting the Bears, what were some of your key plays or a key play of the game?
Yeah, I would say the Preston Smith strip sack right before the half. Minnesota has a chance to go down, cut into the lead, build a lot of momentum, and they're going to get the ball first coming out of halftime. But instead, Jaron Hall holds the ball a little bit too long. Preston absolutely beats Christian Darrisaw, which is so impressive. I mean, Preston Smith has been one of the shining stars on this defense in a team that doesn't have a lot of shining stars on the defense. And I really love the way that he has played. A huge, huge change of momentum on that play. It potentially changes the outcome of the game because Packers are able to go down and turn that into 7 points of their own.
Yeah, I'll take the easy layup here, and I'm going to say the Corey Ballantyne interception. We talked about, when we were talking about our players of the game, he was right in that conversation as well. First career interception, which is kind of crazy to think about, and it came at such a good time. We were talking about, on previous weeks with our Sunday night show that we haven't seen too many turnovers from this Packers defense lately, and of course they get a big one in a huge moment tonight, but no Jair, no Stokes. We kind of talked about the narratives going into this game, and Ballantyne showed out in a huge way. He had the early interception. He locked up Justin Jefferson in some really nice moments, and it was just nice to see the secondary put out a performance like that and actually be attacking, get some PBUs, considering some of the recent struggles that they've had as a unit.
All right. I'm going to talk about injuries, but after that, just not put you on the spot tonight, I'm going to ask you what you think about the game next week. Okay.
Okay, great. Got it.
So, anyways, there were some injuries tonight, unfortunately. Of course, you had talked about Preston Smith going out with apparently a leg injury. He did have a heavily taped ankle. He was able to return to the game, but you never know the significance of that. Sometimes players can play through it, the game, and then, they get back and it swells up or something. So that's one definitely to keep your eye out on. Jaden Reed had a chest injury and did not return to the game. I would assume that was relatively precautionary, and Jaden Reed has been playing through so many injuries this season that you expect that he comes back, but we will wait and see. That's going to be a huge one for going up against that Bears defense, which is playing really well. A.J. Dillon left with what they reported as a stinger, but I thought he was, holding his already injured hand a little bit. So
Yeah.
we'll see what the report was there. And you'll probably know more than we do while we're recording. And then Josh Myers, of course, on that final drive gets hurt. That looks scary. It was a knee. He did walk off under his own power. It looked like Luke Butkus came over and was kind of joking around with him. So hopefully that's not a significant one. But again, we will wait to hear on that because this team is really, really, really banged up. And it would be nice if they would start to trend towards healthy. Another similarity to the 2010 season in that nobody can stay healthy at all. But of course, that sets us up for Green Bay versus Chicago at Lambeau Field next Sunday at 3:25
3:25,
Lambeau
yep.
time, as it was announced. Any quick thoughts on that matchup and that game?
I mean, I know it's been like 5 years now at this point, but I do think that, the move to have divisional games as the final game of the season has made such a difference in like the competitive nature of the NFL because if the Packers were going up against like the Titans in week 18, there's not a ton to play for, right? Like there's not
Yeah.
a ton of juice, but last season, obviously, we saw it. The Lions got to come in and play spoiler. This season, the Bears have the opportunity to come to Lambeau and do the same thing after being embarrassed week one. So just really sets up some really intriguing matchups. Obviously, we're seeing the Bills and Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. So the Packers obviously can win it. We know that they've done it. And we'll see. Matt LaFleur seems to coach his best when his team's back is up against a wall and going into the playoffs. I think I saw on Twitter too, correct me if I'm wrong, but in his 5 seasons as head coach, he's always had something to play for in week 18. There's always been a playoff
Yeah.
spot on the line. So just really impressive stuff from LaFleur as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the Bears want to play spoiler. And weirdly enough, after being left for dead halfway through the season, the Bears probably find themselves in a pretty similar
Mhm.
situation to where the Lions were last year. A team that is trending up. They
Yeah.
have a lot of decisions to make, but a lot of capital leading into the offseason. So,
The
if they
first
can
overall pick.
yeah, absolutely. And if they can go in feeling really good about themselves, I think with all the cap space and all of the draft capital that they have, they can really propel themselves into an exciting offseason. And for the Packers, of course, everything's on the line. And so this is a year where all you and I asked for was a proper assessment of what Jordan Love is.
Yep.
We know now, right?
Mhm.
I'm done doubting. I'm done thinking about it. This is the guy.
Yeah.
And so now the bonus is you can potentially go into the playoffs, get experience for Jordan Love, get experience for an incredibly young team and a playoff atmosphere. And then you have nothing to lose. You can play the spoiler. You
Mhm.
can do all sorts of fun things. So that would be really great. I am so excited because for the first time since I have moved to California, I get to fly back next week and attend a game in person. I didn't know if it was going to mean anything, especially halfway through the season. So that is really, really, really exciting. And of course, Andy will be back doing the YouTube stream. The rest of the gang will be back doing the audio stream all the rest of the week to get you ready for the biggest game of the season. And we are really, really excited about that. But that is all the time that we have for today. This has been the Pack Day Podcast. You can find Maggie on Twitter at Maggie J. Loney. And also check out Pax What She Said. And you can find me at Andrew Mertig. Please subscribe to the podcast and consider giving us a 5-star rating, whether you're following it on YouTube or the audio version. We really appreciate that. It allows us to be super successful and do what we do every single day. You can catch Kyle, Maggie, and myself every single Monday on the audio version, and we will be back next week with a breakdown of that Week 18 game against the Chicago Bears. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, remember, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.